Number 40. Shiny radishes.
During the winter retreat, everyone would share the food that the members brought after evening studies. One day, Tak Pushingap, who was a young bride, participated in the evening studies. She wanted to bring something delicious for Sote-san and her companions, but her house was so poor she could not find even a single thing to bring. One day, while searching her storeroom, she noticed a small vegetable garden growing out of the dirt floor. She remembered burying a few radishes there and excitedly pulled them out. She carefully washed and dried them with great care. She polished them so well that they began to shine. That night, she wrapped the radishes in a bundle and took them to the temple. After the study session was over, the members took out dried persimmons, sweet rice cake treats, and all sorts of tasty snacks for Sote-san. Seeing this, Pushingap became embarrassed and could not offer the radishes. Then Sote-san said,
Pushingap, what have you brought?
Pushingap, who had become red with embarrassment, could not lift her head as she took out her bundle for Sote-san.
Go on, open it,
he urged her. Reluctantly, she opened the bundle and revealed the shiny white radishes. Sote-san said,
Let's all share these radishes that Pushingap has brought to the community.
He ate a radish on the spot and declared out loud how delicious it was. Her embarrassment disappeared, and a smile filled her face.
Number 41. Engdu's father, the Buddha.
Engdu's father worked at the One Buddhism headquarters, mainly cleaning toilets and performing other odd tasks. Even in the middle of his unpleasant labor, Engdu's father would always stop by when Sote-san was giving a lecture to his students. There he would sit on the wooden porch outside and listen. One summer day, Sote-san was engaged in teaching when there was a foul smell coming from the toilet. Everyone started whispering and looked outside to find Engdu's father listening outside on the porch. He had been cleaning the toilet and had temporarily left his carrier full of excrement outside. Everyone frowned and pinched their noses. Seeing this, Sote-san scolded them all.
You are all foolish. Where do you think Buddha is? That man is a Buddha, and the filth he carries is a Buddha. You all sit here in your beautiful clothes and listen to good words. Do you think that makes you a better person? If you are not grateful to the person who does something for you, you are wrong. If you are displeased with the person who does dirty work for a living, thinking he smells and wanting him to leave, then you are wrong. How are you better than that man? If you belittle him just because of his job, then you are wrong. Number 42, seeing only the faults in people.
One student had a narrow mind. He only saw what was bad in people. Sote-san heard his story and told him,
What sort of eyes do you have? Why do you only see and speak of what is bad in people? From now on, strive to see and speak of the good in people. In that way, others can see the good in you too. Number 43, the orangutan and the alcohol.
Sote-san said,
In many cases, huge transgressions start with small mistakes. You should constantly observe your own behavior and correct even minor errors. There's an animal in Asia called the orangutan, known to be so exceptionally strong and fast that it cannot be caught by man. But this animal enjoys alcohol. So if you leave out a jar of liquor in the middle of the road, the orangutan will see it when it passes by. At first, it will smile and be on its way. Then it will return to take a sip and go on again. But it will return again to take another sip. After repeating this several times, the liquor will be gone and the animal will become so intoxicated that it will collapse. Then a person can come and easily capture it. A sip became a whole jar and ultimately led to the animal's capture and demise. A person is no different. A person cannot correct his small mistakes at first. These mistakes continue to grow and grow into a larger problem. So, you should all be alert to your own small mistakes. Number 44, The Honest Child.
Sote-san had stayed in Seoul for a long time. When he came back to the One Buddhism headquarters, all of his students gathered to greet him. He looked around and asked the children.
Did you miss me?
Kyuju and Tongho replied, "We did." Sote-san asked the same question of Palo, who was silent.
How about you?
"Not really," Palo answered. The master laughed out loud at this and said,
You are right. Why would a young man like you miss me?
Sote-san praised Palo for being so honest.
Number 45, Confess your faults beforehand.
One day, Sote-san took some herbal medicine for his rash. Chong Se-hwol, who was in charge of the kitchen, asked, who would like to boil down his medicine? Kim Chi-han said she would do it. So she started to boil the medicine, but she waited too long, and it burned. Panicked, she poured some water on the medicine and brought it to Sote-san. He said,
You burned this, right?
She replied in a tiny voice, Yes. Sote-san said,
Then you should have told me. When you confess your faults beforehand, you decrease them. Number 46, Changing Fate.
Sote-san told a story. During the Tang dynasty in China, there was a famous prime minister named Pei Shu. He was born with his twin brother conjoined at his back. Their parents separated them with a knife and named the bigger child Pei Tu, calling him the older one. They named the smaller child Pei Tak and called him the younger one. Pei Shu is the name that Pei Tu went by once he reached adulthood. The brothers became orphaned at a young age, so they lived with their uncle. One day, a well-known Buddhist priest came by the house and looked at the boys closely. He requested to talk to their uncle and asked him, Who are those two boys? They are my family. I have raised them since their parents' early deaths. You have to make them leave. Why? The uncle asked. I have seen their future, and they both have a destiny to become beggars. They have no good fortune whatsoever. So if you keep them, not only will your house become poor, but your neighbors will become poor as well. For those boys to follow their destiny as beggars, they will bankrupt your household. Let them go. Pei Tu overheard this conversation, and after the priest left, he confronted his uncle. Uncle, My brother and I want to leave. Please give us your blessing. The uncle was astonished. Leave? What do you mean? I overheard what the priest told you earlier. If my brother and I are destined to be poor and damned, how can we bring your household down with us? We will leave. Please give us your blessing. The uncle protested, but the brothers left and became beggars, scrounging every day for food. One day, after discussing their situation, they said, "If we keep living like this, our parents will not be able to rest in peace. Let's go into the mountains. We can sell charcoal, study, and learn martial arts." So the brothers went into the mountains and sold charcoal. They studied many books and practiced with their swords. They made more than enough charcoal to get by. They bundled up the remainder with handwritten letters and placed them on doorsteps. "We made this charcoal with heart and sincerity. Please do not feel burdened. Feel free to use it." Days, months, and years passed. The brothers continued to leave the charcoal for their neighbors. The people who received these presents were suspicious at first, but soon became grateful. They even left bowls of rice outside their doors for the brothers to take. But the brothers never took more than they needed. "This will be plenty, thank you." The news about these brothers soon spread, reaching their uncle. He went to them and pleaded with them. "Please come home with me, even for a short while." When they got to the house, the priest was there again. The priest, after looking at Petu, expressed his shock. "You now have the face of a man who will be an asset to his country." Petu responded, "You used to tell us that we had the fortune of beggars. Why do you say something so different today? Your face had a beggar's fortune in the past, but now it does not. What have you done over the years?" When the brothers told him in detail, the priest happily remarked, "Of course, your good heart has changed your future." As the priest predicted, Petu went on to become the prime minister of his country, using the name Peshu. Petak was offered a government position but refused. Instead, he worked as a boatman on the Huangha River and lived a plain but noble life. Sote-san finished his story and said,
You should not go to fortune tellers. Through mind practice, you are changing your present and your future. If you follow my teachings well, you do not need to have your fortune told. Number 47. Always keep a promise.
One day, Sote-san and a few of his students were walking out of the one Buddhist headquarters. Children who were playing outside bowed to him, except for the youngest child. Sote-san stroked the child's head and said,
If you bow, I will give you a snack.
At his words, the child bowed. The adults kept walking and were laughing at what had just happened. But Sote-san stopped in his tracks.
Wait here. I must do something.
He went back into his room and soon came out with a snack. He gave it to the child and then continued on his way with his disciples. Sote-san always kept his promise, no matter how small.
Number 48. On predators and poisonous snakes.
A student asked Sote-san, If animals and trees are Buddhas, then are those who harm humans, such as predators and poisonous snakes, Buddhas too? Sote-san replied,
If predators and poisonous snakes harm you, do not fight them. Respect the Buddha by stepping aside and avoiding conflict.
The student asked again, then are insects and bacteria Buddhas too? Sote-san replied,
It is certain that they are. So do not kill them recklessly. The reason they sometimes harm you is to protect themselves so that they can continue to live. Number 49. Live in happiness and satisfaction.
Yi Tong-an asked Sote-san, what must you do to deliver sentient beings? Sote-san said,
You must bring happiness to those in pain. Teach those who do not know about the truth, and draw the good out of those who are not. In order to deliver liberation to others, you must live in happiness and satisfaction. Be bright and wise, and pour your heart and mind into everything you do. Number 50. A teacher's true intentions.
when one of his students did something wrong, Sote-san would scold them in front of all the others. However, he always worried that the rest of them would dislike the student. So he told them,
You may dislike the transgression, but do not dislike the person. I may have scolded him, but the rest of you should go and console him. Stop him if he tries to leave, and go comfort him.
in that way, Sote-san always took care of his students and never left a student behind.
Number 51. Begging for a blessing.
A beggar came to Sote-san's student, Kim Ki-chon, and asked for money, saying that doing so would bless him. Kim Ki-chon asked, If I am generous with you, how will you give me a blessing? The beggar could not answer him. Ki-chon said, Foolish men tell people to be charitable for their own personal good. That is far from a blessing. It is a misdeed. Sote-san heard this and said,
Kichan's words are very true. People in this world love to receive blessings, but most dislike to give them. People dislike to be the receiver of misdeeds, but many commit them. That is why this world is filled with people who are suffering, and so few are happy.
Number 52. The father respects the son. When he was on his deathbed, Sote-san spoke to Song Byuk-jo. You are a Confucian scholar. If a son has a higher position than his father in the government, how should the father treat the son? He treats his son with appropriate respect. Even if they are biologically father and son, he must still be respectful. This was Sote-san's way of telling Song Byuk-jo to follow and respect his son Song Gyu, who later became the second head Dharma master of Won Buddhism after Sote-san's passing. Number 53. Dedication to the master. When Sote-san was near his death, he often called upon his old students who had worked hard with him to build the community. One day, he called to the kitchen, "Prepare a table for Towa next to mine." Towa refused and insisted she would eat on the floor. "I cannot eat with you," she said. "Ever since you met me, you have not eaten a meal in comfort, nor have you lived in luxury. You have been through many hardships just because you met me," she cried in response to the warmth in his words. He continued, I have to go to the Diamond Mountains to cultivate my mind. Can you do well without me? If you go, I will go too. I am going somewhere you cannot come. That is not possible. I will follow you anywhere. You will follow me? That would not be easy. You will know when I disappear.
Number 54. The student who buried a dead body.
It was summer, the last night of the lunar month. Sote-san told Kim Hyung-woo,
Did you notice the corpse lying by the mulberry trees? Go take care of it.
the place had no houses and was known to be visited frequently by thieves, so Kim Hyung-woo felt reluctant.
What are you thinking? Once the body loses the spirit, it is no different from a dead fish. So go ahead.
I will, she said. Kim Hyung-woo was on her way, but she became too afraid. So she went to Kim Il-hyun's house and called out, Il-hyun, are you there? From inside the house she heard, Who is it? It's me. Did you know there is a dead body by the mulberry trees? What, are you sure? Master Sote-san told me to take you along to take care of it. Come with me. Is that really true? Would I misrepresent Sote-san and lie to you? All right, I'll go. They took a lamp and a wheelbarrow and went over to the mulberry trees. There was a dead body wrapped in a straw mat. Both of them dragged the body over to the wheelbarrow and then buried it nearby. It was around 11 o'clock when they were done. Sote-san was waiting for them. He had not gone to bed. Kim Hyung-woo said, I was too afraid to go alone, so I lied and brought Il-hyun with me. We buried the body with much care.
Although you lied, you did do as I asked,
said Sote-san.
Isn't it good to take care of an ownerless corpse? It is our duty to set an example by doing things most people want to avoid. Number 55, Karmic Principle.
Cho Chang-guan asked Sote-san, Since for many lifetimes the Buddhas have done nothing to receive lowly retributions, there should be no occasion for them to experience suffering in their numerous lifetimes. However, in the past, the Buddha has endured various hardships. You too, Great Master, after establishing this community, have not been spared the suffering from government surveillance, as well as troubles dealing with the congregation. We do not understand the reason for this. Sote-san replied,
Even though I have been delivering many people throughout several lifetimes, and although it has already been quite some time since I have committed any transgression knowingly, I unknowingly repressed the unwholesome energies of obstinate beings.
He continued,
Even with a Buddha's ability, which brings about compassionate deliverance with the right Dharma, one cannot eliminate one's fixed karma. No matter how insignificant a sentient being may be, one's merits may not be offset by one's transgressions. Buddhas and bodhisattvas of great ability can indeed condense into a single lifetime the retributions they were to receive over many lifetimes, but they can never eliminate them completely. Number 56, using the new hair clipper.
Sote-san said,
This morning, Kim Sung-mehwa was shaving my head, but the hair clipper didn't work well and kept pulling my hair. So she told me,
Master, the clipper must be broken.
I had bought that clipper recently at a shop in Seoul with Kong-chu, and had picked the best one. So I took the clipper back to the One Buddhism headquarters and asked Pak Tae-wan to shave my head. He did it with much ease and took very little time and said to me,
"It is a good machine."
I asked Chun Ong-gwang as well, and he too told me that the clipper was very good. Then I asked Song Do-seong, but he had a difficult time, so I thought his technique was lacking. Instead of thinking that her skills were deficient, Sam Mehwa blamed the machine. A person who is skilled recognizes that the machine is good and appreciates it, but a person who is unskilled cannot use a good machine, let alone appreciate it. It is the same with people. If you have dealt with many people, you can recognize their strengths and weaknesses and instruct them accordingly. If we are only able to see the weaknesses, we end up scolding them instead of getting along and giving them a good purpose. A person who has attained complete realization knows how to work with all types of people, but deluded beings do not know how and only see flaws in others. A long time ago, Shakyamuni Buddha even knew how to deal with a person like Chotai, who tried to harm the Buddha. Chotai would go around spreading bad rumors about him, but Buddha said,
Chotai is a Buddha too, no different from me. Actually, he is working even harder than I am. I sit comfortably here in ultimate bliss, telling people to throw away their suffering and come join me. However, Chotai is in hell, actively teaching people not to follow his footsteps. Chotai is saving more people than I am.
Buddha could not have acted as Chotai did, and yet he knew how to extract wisdom from a person like Chotai. Still, Chotai denied Buddha till the end and could not avoid hell. So, my students, you must study and practice to attain Buddhahood. Number 57. Why cut off your hand?
When the Chinese Buddhist monk Heika was studying under Bodhidharma, he cut off his own hand to show his faith. Like Heika, Sote Huan cut his left hand off to show his faith and devotion to Sote-san. When Sote Huan came back from the hospital, Sote-san asked him,
Tae-wan, why did you cut off your hand? Because you did not want to work? Because you wanted to rest?
"No."
Then why?
Truthfully, I was thinking about the story of Master Heika and how he cut off his own hand.
What, you were trying to copy him?
I was not trying to copy him. I thought that in order to achieve enlightenment, I had to have enough faith to cut off my own hand.
So you were comparing me to Bodhidharma and yourself to Master Heika.
That's right.
That is not a very good comparison. I will see if you truly understand the meaning of the story. Go ahead and tell me the story of Bodhidharma and Master Heika.
Sote Huan began his story. Bodhidharma came from India to China and practiced for 9 years at Shaolin Monastery. Then one snowy winter, Master Heika came to see Bodhidharma to ask for his wisdom. At first, Bodhidharma ignored him, but Heika did not move until the snow piled up to his knees. And Bodhidharma said he would pass down the great Dharma only to those with enough faith to sacrifice their whole body. Upon hearing this, Master Heika cut off his hand in front of Bodhidharma to show his faith. Sote-san replied,
He showed his faith, but could not settle his mind. So he asked Bodhidharma, My mind is not at peace. Please put my mind to rest. Then what did Bodhidharma say?
He said, Show me your disturbed mind, then I will settle it for you.
But Master Haga could not find his unsettled mind anywhere. So what did he ask Bodhidharma?
He said, I cannot find it anywhere.
Then what did Bodhidharma say?
He said, if you cannot find your disturbed mind, then your mind is already settled.
Then what happened?
Master Haga achieved enlightenment.
Then did Master Haga attain enlightenment by cutting off his hand, or did he do so by Bodhidharma's words?
It was his words.
If you know so well, then why did you cut off your hand? To show me your strong faith? What will come of that? Why can't you say anything? You are good with your words.
Master, I have done wrong.
Taewan, you have much potential for the future. What if later on, future members of our order try to emulate you and cut off their hands too? What should we do then?
So Taewan sat silently.
Taewan, again I say that you have so much potential. How can someone like you make such a foolish mistake? What if our future members try to follow in your footsteps by cutting off their hands as well? What can we do then?
So Taewan said nothing.
Listen, Taewan. Our human body is the most important tool for our practice and work. What's the use of demonstrating your faith if you damage it? True faith comes from the mind, not the body. Our order is still beginning, so we have many things to do. If you cut off your hand and cannot work, then who will? You must never do anything like this again. No matter how knowledgeable you are, and even if you received much respect from others or from past actions, that does not make you a true believer. Only a person who is willing to make the utmost effort with unwavering faith can be a true master in this world. Number 58, the killing of insects.
Kim Jong-mook was working on a peach farm, and he killed many insects with insecticides. He started to think that perhaps by killing seemingly insignificant lives, he was violating a natural law. So he asked Sote-san. The master replied,
Who did you do this work for?
I worked for the development of one Buddhism, Kim Jong-mook answered. Sote-san said,
Yes, you did. You did not do it for your personal gain. The insects were eating what belonged to the public for their personal growth. Admiral Yi Sun-shin killed people, not worms. But we don't say that he committed a transgression. Instead, we praise him and say he did the right thing for the common good. A person who works for the common good progresses. You too will progress and become a better person in your next life. Even so, if you were serving the greater good, you will receive karmic consequences. That is inevitable. But those consequences will not be as severe. For example, killing thousands of bugs may give you a small boil. So do not be afraid of the acts you do for the public good. If you have the slightest inclination to do it for your own personal satisfaction, then the karmic consequences will not be light. So be careful. Number 59, make your promise known.
Pak Chaegwan decided to be a one Buddhist minister when she graduated from school. She visited Master Sote-san to tell him of her decision. She was in her second year at one of the best schools in the area, Chonbuk Girls' High School. Sote-san told her to tell the public of her determination. Chaegwan thought, whether I tell the public or not, it will not affect my decision. I have made a promise to Master Sote-san. I know I will not break it. There is no need to inform the public of my decision. Sote-san said,
You must make your decision known to the many. In that way, you become more responsible to your word. If you keep that decision to yourself, it could go wrong. You may not think so now, but it can change as you grow older. I once knew someone who attended your school and who, like you, said she wished to be a one Buddhist minister. Later, she changed her mind and got married. If you make your decision public, you can ask the people for support, even if you change your mind later. In that way, you're able to keep the original promise that you made. Number 60. The darkness beneath the lamp.
While Sote-san was staying at Pongne Hermitage, he pointed at a lamplight and asked,
Why does that lamplight illuminate all directions except directly underneath?
Kim Nam-chon replied, This is exactly how I am. I have been the great master's direct attendant for several years, but what I know and can do is inferior to that of my Dharma brothers, who come from afar occasionally to visit you. Sote-san smiled and asked Song Kyu the same question. Song Kyu replied, The light of that lamp shines upward, illuminating the far distance, but the lampstand dims everything underneath. If we take this as a simile, this is just like certain people who are well aware of others' faults, but are blind to their own mistakes. The reason is that when they look at other people, there is nothing blocking their view, so they can directly look upon the strengths and weaknesses and good or bad points. But when they look at themselves, the shadow of the ego covers the light of wisdom, preventing them from recognizing their own right and wrong conduct. Sote-san asked,
What then can an imperfect person do to illuminate everything without bias?
Song Kyu replied, If one is not attached to joy, anger, sorrow, or pleasure, and eliminates all notions from the mind, then one's understanding will be free from self and others. Sote-san said,
You are right. Number 61. Which part is clean and which part is dirty?
This is a story that Sote-san told. There was an unnamed Buddhist priest who was leading a monastic life. One day, his son came and said, Father, tomorrow is the anniversary of grandfather's death. Is that so? Then we must go and prepare the appropriate food for the ceremony. The priest went to the butcher shop with some money and said, I need some meat. It will be used in an important ritual, so please try to cut me a clean piece. The butcher stuck his knife in the meat and asked, Which part is clean and which part is dirty? The priest was baffled and he said, You are right. Nothing is either clean or dirty. There are no clean or dirty parts, hateful or lovely parts. The priest had experienced deep enlightenment. Sote-san said,
The Dharma instructions are not the only ways to attain enlightenment. If you keep studying and practicing, you will eventually come to realize on your own. Number 62. What happens to others happens to me.
Mun Chong-yu, one of Sote-san's students, said to the master, A while ago, I went to Pak Ho-jang's house, and it happened to be the anniversary of his son's death. Seeing him grieve deeply made me realize how profoundly hurt he was. Sote-san said,
The bond between a parent and a child is so deep, it is normal to grieve so.
The student replied, I do not understand. He is a practitioner, yet he loses his head over something so meaningless. How does that make sense? Sote-san asked him.
Can you tell me that if something like that happened to you, you would not be upset?
I would not be upset at all.
Are you sure?
Sote-san asked repeatedly, and the student repeatedly answered the same. A few years later, one of that student's sons had a legal problem and was locked in prison for 20 days or so. He was so worried that he could not eat or sleep. He would constantly wander around the house crying. Later, he visited Sote-san and said, I realize now that there is a big difference between watching what happens to others and actually experiencing it myself. I am very sorry to have made a full statement to you back when I mentioned Pak Ho-jang. Sote-san said,
You are right. Ordinary people talk big and act foolishly about the things they only observe. Since you have realized what is wrong, you should always keep this in mind. Number 63. The Student Who Plucked Pine Leaves.
This is the story told by Huang Chon-Xinheng when she was going to her vacation home in Yangchu with Sote-san. One day, Sote-san said to her,
I hear you own some good land. Can I take a look?
Chon-Xinheng said, If you wish to look, I can guide you. The next day, Chon-Xinheng packed a snack and went with 4 people, including Yi Wan-chol. While they were walking, Chon-Xinheng, with no reason, began plucking pine needles from the trees. Sote-san asked,
Why are you picking pine needles?
Yi Wan-chol next to her said, Sometimes we cannot help but to break a few branches when we hike in the mountains. Sote-san said,
You will receive karmic retribution for this action in the future.
Chon-Xinheng was so ashamed when she heard Sote-san's words that she began sweating and her face turned red. So she quickly went down to the creek and repeatedly splashed water on her face. She told everyone to do the same. Sote-san said,
That is not how you wash your face.
Chon-Xinheng asked, Then how do we do it? Sote-san said,
You must scoop the water like this.
Sote-san carefully scooped the water into his hands, turned away from the creek, and washed his face. Then he said,
Even if water is free and abundant, we should use it sparingly and not waste it. If people use water wastefully, they can be born in a place where water is hard to attain. Number 64. Fluctuating good and evil.
Sote-san always told his students,
Even if a person has wronged, he can change through true repentance and effort. The murderous and evil energy in him will disappear and be replaced with warmth, and his future will be brightened. However, even a person who has done good deeds in the past can at times be filled with unwholesome energy. If he holds on to resentment and harmful intentions, his future will inevitably be darkened. Number 65. How a cat raises its kittens.
Sote-san said,
Once when I was in Yangkwang, I saw a cat raising her 3 little kittens. I watched every day and noticed how wise she was in raising her babies. I realized there were aspects of her methods that were better than some of our human methods. At first, when she gave birth, she embraced her kittens, fed them regularly, licked them, cleaned them, and took care of them with utmost devotion. If a human came close, the mother would stare back at the human instinctively to protect her babies from any harm. As the babies grew up, the mother would go outside and kill a mouse to feed them. Sometimes the mother would catch one alive and bring it home, let it go, then catch it again with her paws in order to teach the kittens. Every day the mother would play with a mouse in different ways and eventually kill it for the kittens, teaching them how to hunt and feed themselves. After those initial lessons, the mother denied the kittens any of her milk and only caught mice for herself. She no longer brought any mice home. If any of the kittens begged for milk or tried to nurse from her, she would simply refuse. This encouraged the kittens to be independent. How could I not think that this cat was better than many human beings? In another instant, I was in a one Buddhist temple in Seoul and saw a cat raising its two kittens in the storage room in a house in Changshan district. I noticed that one kitten was well fed and healthy, while the other one was very thin and weak. I asked why, and Kim Sam Mehwa replied, "Upon birth, the two kittens were of the same size. However, when the mother stopped giving them milk, only one of them became independent and was able to feed on its own. The other one continued to expect the mother to bring food and was unable to catch a single mouse on its own. But the mother, instead of being sympathetic, ignored it, so the kittens started to starve. A human mother would be extremely sympathetic and try to help the starving child, but in the case of a cat, the mother is detached and holds no exception. I think that this naturally teaches the kittens independence. How wise is this? An ignorant person would think that loving their children is letting them do whatever they want, raising them to be lazy and delinquent. They could learn a thing or two from these cats. Even though they came from the same womb, one cat grew up to be independent and self-reliant, while the other one remained dependent and rejected. Why do you think this is? Both animals and humans follow certain rules of behavior. To be independent, one must have a storage chest full of merit and happiness. By contrast, being dependent on others inevitably results in suffering. This applies to both cats and humans, which should be sincerely considered throughout our lives. Number 66. A bird is the same as you.
Pai Hion, the son of Quan Tonghua, one of Sote-san's students, became very ill. Someone mentioned that eating boiled birds could heal him, and told his father to take the bird's nest full of baby birds from the clothing repair room and boil them for his son. Quan Tonghua asked Sote-san what he thought about this. Sote-san replied,
How could you be a practitioner of the Dharma and be so unaware?
Sote-san was so dumbstruck that he was silent for a long time. At last he spoke again.
The bird's mind is no different from yours. Your love for your son is no different from the bird's love for its young. How would you feel if the bird took your child and ate him? Number 67. Wishing for the future.
February 5th, 1926, was Yi Kong-ju's 30th birthday. A celebration took place at her home. Sote-san arrived with Pak Sashiwa and Yi Song-guk to wish her a happy birthday. Sote-san asked Yi Kong-ju,
What do you wish to do in the future? What would bring you the most satisfaction?
Yi Kong-ju answered, I wish to fight for the rights of women in Korea. So first, I wish to study literature in Japan, come back and write books to enlighten the women of Korea. Sote-san said,
Your wish to enlighten thousands of women in Korea is a great and admirable idea. However, The women of Korea are only a small part of the billions of people in this world. The fact that you are thinking only of the women of Chosun is too narrow-minded. You said you wanted to write for women. There are only a handful of women who are literate. How about expanding your horizons to become a master of ethics and help the entire human race?
From that day on, Yi Kong-ju started dreaming of a different life, and her faith in Sote-san grew even deeper. Whenever Sote-san came to Seoul, she would bring him to her house and listen to his lectures. She even took care of his traveling expenses during his stay. Eventually, her house became a formal evening lecture hall.
Number 68, making communal decisions on your own.
When Oh Chang-gon was in Yongsan, someone wanted to sell him land. He saw that the man offered him a price much cheaper than its actual worth. He thought he should return to One Buddhism headquarters and discuss the matter with everyone, but there was no time. So he bought the land by himself and returned. He believed that Sote-san would praise him for making such a bargain. So he proudly said, "Master, we decided to buy some land in Yongsan. The price is less than half of the market rate. I believe it will be a huge profit for our order."
I see. When did we discuss buying land?
There was no time, so I signed the contract on my own and am reporting to you now.
You made a communal decision on your own. Do you realize what you have done wrong? If you make such decisions by yourself just for the sake of profit, who knows what will happen to our order in the future? Someone might betray us and sell a part of our community for personal gain. Go back right now and revoke the contract. Pay the deposit if you must. Such wrong ideas must be eradicated early.
So he went back, paid the deposit, and revoked the contract.
Number 69, an angry mind.
Sote-san said,
The anger you have can never be understood by others. That anger is caused by blame and resentment because you cannot control your mind. If you wish to make controlling your mind your primary focus, then you must first learn to be grateful. Number 70, the eyes of wisdom.
One day, Sote-san was with Officer Huang Yi-chun in the office of the head Dharma master. He asked,
Ichon, you don't know me, do you?
"Of course I do. You are Master Sote-san."
That is not what I mean. You do not recognize who I truly am. You only see me through your physical eyes. You have to open your eyes of wisdom to really see me. Number 71, just let it be.
One day, Sote-san scolded Song To-song. The reason was that Song To-song had seen a bird caught in a spider's web, and he tore it open to set the struggling bird free. To-song thought, "Why does this puny spider dare to eat a bird this big?" Sote-san told him,
Tosong, why did you interfere with something that is not your business?
"I set the bird free because it was struggling, unable to fly because of the spider web. Was I wrong?"
Do you think you were right? That spider built the web for days and nights so that it could catch something to eat. Think of how the spider will hate you for setting the bird free.
"What should I have done?" Sote-san said,
Do not interfere. Just let it be. Number 72, the living universe.
Sote-san spoke of the origins of the universe.
The universe is filled with energy that constantly moves, and it is aware. The universe has nothing that is truly dead. Listen carefully, I will give you an example. The boils on your body let out pus. This is because the flesh around it is rotting. You may think that the smelly, disgusting pus has no place in this world. You may think the same about excrement. You may say that excrement does not contain any life, since it is the leftovers of what we have already digested. However, these things are never dead, nor should they be left just to rot. They may seem dead, but the elements inside them are alive. Let's say you use the pus and the excrement as fertilizers for cabbages or radishes. Then the plants will grow more abundantly than those without fertilizers. If the pus and excrement were truly dead, without any living power, then the plants would not have grown well. They may seem rotten and dead to us, but they are actually alive. And this life force transforms into food for plants. That is why, even though the pus and excrement may change form and disappear over time, their vital energy continues on. So we can conclusively say that nothing in this universe is ever truly dead. This universe is filled with living energy. That is how the universe changes and renews itself. Number 73, dried fish.
Kim Yong-shin from the Pusan One Buddhist temple once told the master Sote-san, "Teacher, I am afraid to go to funerals." Sote-san asked,
Yongshin, are you afraid of dried fish?
"No."
Dead people are no different. What are you so afraid of?
She said nothing in reply. From then on, Kim Yong-shin would mutter to herself about dried fish every time she went to a funeral.
Number 74, the foolish servant.
In Yongkwang, there lived a servant named Mong Pa-u. One day, his master told him, "You should go to the Changsong market this morning." "Yes, sir," said Mong Pa-u, and so he went to the market. Later on that day, his master wanted to tell him what kind of errands to run at the market, but he was nowhere to be found. Finally, in the afternoon, Mong Pa-u came back. His master asked, "Where have you been?" Mong Pa-u answered, "I have been to the market." "But I never told you what to buy at the market." "But you told me to go this morning." Sote-san used Mong Pa-u as an example never to act without reason or questioning.
Number 75, a crooked Il-won-sung, a round Il-won-sung.
Sote-san showed his students a crooked Il-won-sung and a round one.
Which one looks better?
They answered, "The round one. The crooked one does not look very good." Sote-san said,
That is right. When we use our minds, we must be like the round Il-won-sung and not the crooked one. Number 76, the servants who cried with no reason.
There lived a politician who had many wives. Because of the many wives, there were many family members, and as a result, many deaths and funerals. Following tradition, the servants cried aloud all day, but they never really knew who died. Their actions were meaningless and impractical. After telling this story, Sote-san said,
The politician's servants were wearing clothes and eating food that the citizens had worked so hard for. To waste their precious time in this world so meaninglessly is almost a crime. People who behave this way have no reason to live here. Therefore, always be alert. Always have a purpose and look back on your life every morning and every night. You cannot live life without a useful purpose. Number 77, The Two Pheasants.
One day, Sote-san went to the market in Yongkwang with Kim Kwang-son. While he was resting at a house, he asked the owner,
Is there not a lady of this house?
The owner replied, Whenever I married, the woman left after just a few months, so I live alone. Sote-san, upon hearing this, smiled and said,
If I find you a good woman, will you live with her?
The owner gladly agreed and said, If you do so, I will be very grateful. While Sote-san stayed in that house, he watched many people come and go from the market. He saw a woman, called to her and said,
Do you have a husband?
She replied, No, I am a widow now. Sote-san said to her,
Would you consider living with the owner of this house?
The woman was taken aback and refused at first, but after meeting the owner, she seemed to be willing. Sote-san sat in front of the couple and offered to share a story.
Once upon a time, a couple of wild pheasants were living happily in the mountains. When they died, they were reborn as good people, but they struggled to find each other. They spent half their lives wandering alone without children. When they finally found each other, they reunited as a couple and finally led a joyful life together.
As he was finished with the story, the owner and the woman were crying as if they had lost a parent. Sote-san said,
That is why it is crucial to form positive affinities with people. Remember this.
Sote-san left the house. On his way from the market, he told Kim Kwang-son,
Did you understand what I told the couple today? They were pheasants in previous lives, and they cried so hard when I talked about their past. People live through many lifetimes, but forming good affinities with others is the most important blessing of all.